I have this saying, bless our stuff. And I shared it with someone I'm working with yesterday because he had some stuff coming up for him. And, I said, just bless our stuff. And the funny thing is, what is that stuff? What is it that I'm talking about? Stuff is the collective term I have come to use for unhealed emotion, triggers, uncomfortable situations inside of how we're showing up in those, regrets, resentments, beliefs, behaviors, all that funky stuff that goes on that comes up sometimes for us. And, we can be in the middle of another conversation with somebody and, suddenly our stuff, in inverted commas, is coming up. And so, why do I say bless our stuff and why do I hold it in that space? Because what I've come to know is through the inner work that I've done and continue to do, because don't get me wrong, I've shifted stuff, but I still have stuff and I still bless it, is that what's surfacing in the moment that can be slightly unpleasant, slightly uncomfortable, or maybe very uncomfortable is actually life's biggest indication as to where the focus is for the next piece of your growth. And the things or the stuff that we avoid, as Joseph Campbell says, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek, is that those things that we've been avoiding typically are the things that will shift us to the next level. And it sounds funny, like that the thing that you don't want to do is actually what's the key to your next level. Let me give you an example. So I used to have a thing with food and sugar. And whenever my stuff, in inverted commas, will come up, one of the patterns of behavior I had was to, comfort myself with food, particularly sweet things. And there are a variety of things that went with that. So, rewarding myself. I've been good, so I should have a treat. I feel bad, so let me make myself feel better. And really, underneath that, when I stopped soothing myself with the food or the sugar, um, I had some funky things going on. And through actually feeling those, through looking at, what's the cause here? What's underneath that? Why am I doing those things? Why is that way? How come things show up that way? And bringing some introspection and self-reflection to those things. And of course, guidance from the universal source that is always nudging us in the right direction, the perfect direction for us. I got to know what that stuff was about without going into all the details. And I now have freedom in my food and particularly with sugar. So I am what is known as food neutral. And so, going from a place where food was seen as good food, bad food, and now food is nourishment, it's energy, it's giving life and it's from nature. And, especially where I am here, you can see if you're watching on YouTube, the fazenda in the background. And, the mangoes grow on the tree here and we collect the mangoes when they're in season. So yeah, that was my food stuff. So, it's not the behavior that we're looking at, it's what's underneath that. It's always what's underneath that. And you can dive deeper and deeper, and the deeper you go. And the beautiful thing is that there's this perspective shift that happens. So if you are listening and you have something that you feel that you don't want to feel, and as I'm talking about it, it feels really uncomfortable. And maybe you've even stopped listening because it feels so uncomfortable. That's quite possible. But if you're still with me, um, that thing is actually what is the key to your growth. And by bringing presence to it, to actually feel it, to no longer push it aside, to only go for the positive and only go for the pleasant feelings, to actually, process that, what is uncomfortable, is that you have a perspective shift. So I mentioned before that I still have stuff and I'm always going to have, stuff to go through. Maybe someone who is an enlightened being in this lifetime, if this of their many lifetimes was the lifetime for them, maybe they would sort through all of their stuff. But instead of going, oh, I wish I didn't have this situation. I wish I didn't have this problem. Why is it not going my way? Et cetera, et cetera. I now look at those things and go, wow, bless my stuff. Look at this. Something has come up for me. And instead of going to look externally to make myself feel happier or uh, feel some other feeling than what's there or do some other activity, actually go inward and get to the root of it. My invitation for you is maybe twofold or threefold. So if you have stuff and you're still with me, that's excellent. That's really great. Because you can do a couple of the questions that I've asked throughout this recording, throughout this conversation we're having. So what you want to get to the core of what it's about. What is the belief? Why do you do that thing? And if you don't know, then, sometimes you can ask for guidance from, that source that is greater than all of us, that power that is greater than all of us. You may call it different things. And tune into, why is that significant for you? Why is that the most important thing? And it might not even be a rational answer. It might be a feeling answer, a felt sense. Often it can be that way. Yeah, so that's my first invitation. And then my second invitation is to have that perspective shift. So to borrow from David Guillaume, he has pause, what a pleasure when uncomfortable things come up. When that stuff comes up, you're like, oh, great. Here we go. I've got something to look at. I've got inner work to do and being your inner champion for when that comes up. And then my third, because I said there was three, I said it was threefold. My third invitation is If you have an insight of stuff you have shifted as a result of listening to this, send me a message. And I love you and leave you with that.